Hello, this is Dan Ferrisi, Group Editor, Commercial and Security with Commercial Integrator, here with Keith and Jeremy. We're going to be talking about USB-C and its migration from consumer to commercial. Why don't you both introduce yourselves in a bit more detail?
Sure. Thanks, Dan. Good to see you. I'm Keith Kennedy, Managing Director of ProITAV USA. We run the global OEM manufacturing and support for lots of different products and companies around the world in AV signal management and unified communications.
So my name is Jeremy Vierck. I am the engineering manager of the Product and Solutions Group at AVI-SPL, the world's largest AV integrator. And my boss, John Richards, and I, we lead up the technical side of AVI-SPL, all things engineering, and we focus on new products, how we can develop partnerships, and what are the best solutions for our customers.
Well, again, thank you both for being here. Why don't we just level set? We're talking about USB, as I say, and the migration from consumer to commercial. First of all, do you agree with that premise? And if so, what's driving it?
Yeah, I think really ease of use. Everybody's used to USB. We've all been around long enough that we remember when USB started. You know, we started to use keyboards and mice with USB, the ease of use. And it's only accelerated with the advent of the USB-C connector. It's on our phones, it's on our computers. Everybody wants that connector and what it provides. It just adds a lot more complexity moving from, you know, standard commercial into commercial-based solutions.
Agreed, Dan. I mean, obviously, he and I have been around the industry for a long time. We've seen lots of different things, VGA, RGB HV, composite component, S, you know, and then migrating into HDMI and DisplayPort and all these types of things. But along the way, there's always been USB, but it's mainly been for control. But then we started getting into cameras and microphones and things like that. And then once you can marry that all together and have audio, video, data, and now Ethernet and power delivery and charging all in one connector, it's a game changer, but it's not without its issues.
And we're certainly going to get into some of those issues in a moment. I'm interested from the AVI-SPL perspective, from the trenches, you know, obviously, as you say, very well-known, biggest integrator. How pressing is the need for USB-C, and where can you see it really make a difference in terms of the applications and implementations you're doing and seeing every day?
Yeah, for USB-C, there's a huge drive for it. And the challenges with USB-C and USB in general are exactly what we're talking about here, with going into, you know, professional grade. And USB was never built upon, you know, professional grade, you know, technology or solutions like, for example, IEEE was. And so that creates a lot of challenges in building out solutions that customers want. They want ease of use, connectivity everywhere. And USB, you know, whether it's a C connector, A connector, whatever, wasn't designed to do that. And that's where Valens and some of the other partners, HDBaseT, you know, have really worked hard to add features and flexibility that let us do some of those professional things. But there's more to do, right, Keith?
Exactly. And, you know, one of the cool things about the previous way of doing it is you always had a connector for this and a connector for that and a connector for that. So it made it kind of easy, even though you had to deal with a lot of connectors and cables. You plug this in there in the audio video one, you know that's for the audio video. You plug this in there. Now, when you have USB-C, people plug it in. It doesn't necessarily say, what is it for? What version of USB is it going to support? Is it going to charge my laptop? Is it going to do video? Am I going to get Ethernet? What's going to happen? The port doesn't say that, but people's expectations are, you know, I've got this, I plug it in, and it should just all work. I should just get everything.
No, that's no doubt that's the expectation. So from your unique vantage point as a leading equipment manufacturer, very well established in the industry, do you want to dive a little bit deeper into some of the technical challenges that need to still be overcome or in the process of being overcome when it comes to USB-C, and how equipment leaders like you are working to navigate that?
Sure. It covers a lot of different things. I mean, number one is education. You know, a lot of people don't necessarily know, you know, what are we supposed to provide and what's out there, and things are constantly changing. You know, every time a new generation of laptop comes out, it requires something different. Okay. Also, cables, the connectorization, even that short distance between the device, usually a laptop, and whatever device you're plugging it into to achieve your goal. If you don't have the right type of connector, right type of cable, it may not support everything. So throughout the evolution of this, we've had to really work with lots of people and understand what are the requirements, what are the things you're trying to do to make sure that we have everything there. Because the first time you start dealing with like a USB-C connector and you're doing audio, video, and data, that's what you're doing. But really, you should also be adding power delivery and the right kind of power delivery with the appropriate wattage so you can actually charge these big laptops that people are plugging in today. You also want to supply Ethernet. A lot of the connectivity that you have today, when you plug things in, you don't have Ethernet coming through there. And that's really important, especially in certain secure corporate financial environments where Wi-Fi is not always allowed, or it's allowed for certain things. But if you're part of the corporation, usually you need a wired connection to get access to everything that you need, and people expect that to be there at the USB-C connector.
I see you nodding your head, Jeremy.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you pointed out education. For us, has been huge, so that people are understanding the customer's needs. Do they need Ethernet? What power do they need? What feature set? It's such a rich feature set on USB-C connectors. What are the customer's needs? What do they want? And then designing a system that consistently provides that room to room. We've worked really hard internally at AVI-SPL. We're lucky enough to have a global wealth of knowledge from our SMEs and engineers around the world. And you mentioned cables. We test cables because, as you know, not every cable is the same. Unfortunately, we have clients who buy something online and hey, it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Well, we need to use cables that we've validated for our solutions. We've set up internal SharePoint page dedicated to USB. So you're right. Education is so key to understanding what are the capabilities and how should we design a professional USB solution. It's not just plug and play.
So let me add one thing to that is, as the technology and the requirements have evolved, we've had to really work hard with vendors such as Valence to come up with the silicon that we need to go into our products to be able to deliver everything that the connectorization can supply. Because up until now, we could only maybe deliver USB 2 across a long distance link, along with audio and video and everything else that we're talking about. But really today you need USB 3.1, 3.2, and I know if you start looking at some of the other laptops, we're now looking at USB and Thunderbolt 4 and higher are coming, so there's lots of things we need to look at. And then we start getting into multi-stream, okay? MST, as a lot of people call it. And again, people expect, if I go into my office and I plug into my dock, okay, that's made by brand T or brand B or whoever, I'm able to plug into multiple monitors and get different desktops across there. Well, why can't I do that and also extend it 50 feet or 100 meters across the room? So we've really had to work hard to understand what the requirements are and also work with our baseline technology providers to be able to build that into the products that we then bring to the market through all the different brands that we build for, that then AVI-SPL and other companies like that can use.
So just as a kind of quick hit last question before we wrap up, you've both emphasized the need to kind of level up your knowledge, level up your familiarity, make sure your team is adequately aware of the nuances and the challenges. For those who are watching this, be they end users, channel partners, integrators, consultants, what are the resources they can lean on? How can they get themselves up to speed so that they can be good consultative partners for their clients and those with whom they work?
Yeah, I mean, really foundationally understanding USB standards. What are USB standards? What is accounted for? In the AV industry, we do go outside of those a bit when we switch USB and things like that. We need those features, of course. So foundationally, getting good fundamental USB training, understanding, for example, USB-C is just a connector. As Keith was saying, what are all these features that we need to provide for customers? And what are the true capabilities? USB is not just, at a small scale, it's plug and play. But as you start expanding into those professional size systems, you actually need to design them. You need to take into consideration how many tiers you have, how much power you're using, all of those things. You truly need to design the system, or you will have failures. Your technicians may be on site, they plug everything in, it works, and then the customer calls you a week later and says the system's not working. Well, you might be a little short on power, or there's something with a hub and a tier. So you have to be very mindful of those things.
Right. I'm glad you brought up the point about hubs and tiers. Most people really, really do not understand that. And especially with the advent of the first smart boards and things like that, they were basically taking off-the-shelf consumer or low-grade commercial panels and sticking extra devices in there. And so they just needed USB hubs to just expand the connectivity inside of these things. Well, if you try to connect to that, and then you also try to extend that through an HDBaseT extension solution, it becomes a nightmare. And it has, Valens has been fantastic working with us and other partners in the industry to figure out what needs to be done through making the legacy technologies work, and then take all of that knowledge and build it into the latest generation, the VS6320 that we're building with today for extending USB 3.2 signals across a category cable. So we take that, we work with our customers, we look at the applications, and we try to map out the systems as we're designing the products to make sure that the applications are going to be fulfilled.
Keith Kennedy, Jeremy Vierck, thank you so much for joining us today. Really informative conversation. And thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dan Ferrisi, Group Editor, Commercial and Security with Commercial Integrator, here at the HDBaseT booth at ISE 2025, doing thought leadership interviews on the most topical interview topics of the day with the brightest thought leaders here with us in Barcelona.